Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Right, we have a bit of a show today. Where do we start with this show? Well, up until yesterday I was struggling to come up with a name for it. It's a plethora of topics that circle around and then all tie back in. New ponderings, new information, and all connected in with dots. This in some parts will be a roller coaster of emotions, and it will also trigger on a very deep level. It will churn up memories and traumas of the past to heal in the now. Your reactions will be tested. And because of that, we're going to do or start off this show with something that is new for our show. And we're going to start with this. Let's lower it down. So, before we start this show, I want all listeners to briefly and quickly get into their own quiet space mode. Like pre-meditation mode. And because this show will trigger heavy and deep emotions with the plethora of new information for many of you, the beginning of this show will not point to what comes later in the show. So now you are ready, I want you to all to do breathing exercises. Do it for 9 breaths. Breathe in deeply through the nostrils. Hold for a count of 3 and exhale through the mouth, not the nose, for 9 breaths, starting now. Right, let's get it started. Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. Right, let's get into it. Well, this all started because I was pondering the other day, which generally comes to major realizations, and it ended with 15,000 words being written. And it was Kim who started it this time, not Michelle. Kim was told to wait for 2 weeks. Yes, you heard that right, Dave. For something. And their reaction was, well, Fargo, is this 2 weeks all about? Why is everything 2 weeks? Of course, it was made into a meme in alt media circles by Drake and his 2 weeks predictions, 0 of which came true, but it will one day. Now, my own research has led me to believe 2 weeks is a brain entrainment program activated by MK Ultra style programming via Langley, Montauk and several other so-called research locations plus institutions, colleges, universities and schools. It is mentioned several times in movies, shows and theatre, and like all the cat memes, it makes no sense as to why something would be repeated so often unless you begin to see it as a program. Like the series They Live, which commands of obey, buy, consume, sleep, stay asleep, watch TV, are all brain entrainment tactics implemented on the people to ensure compliance with their programs, ran on and against us. Whilst we have slept as a collective, they lived at our expense, harvesting and unleashing our energy, and we as a collective complied. But there was a small group on this planet they couldn't control and brain entrain. It is a fact that 15% cannot be controlled on this planet. Maybe those 15% are different, real different, as we may find out within this show. Those people were also covered in a series called The Divergence, set in a futuristic dystopia where society is divided into 5 factions, each represents a different virtue, and teenagers have to decide if they want to stay in their faction or switch to another for the rest of their lives. The classic line they always roll out in these type of disclosure shows is, it is set in a futuristic setting. Just like technology, there's nothing futurist about it, it is the now and the past. Notice they threw in the 5 factions, oh my, and where have we heard that in greater detail before? All hidden in plain sight, as they say, but to the blind people who have eyes and don't use them, it largely becomes lost in the fog of distraction programs. The character Triss Pryor makes a choice that surprises everyone in that show, and then Triss and her fellow faction members have to live through a highly competitive initiation process to live out the choice they have made. This is to put all people into boxes based on the profiling of us all, and that program starts in kindergarten, and it then went into overdrive on the alt media platform. The masses all answered the meme-based questionnaires on there that, oblivious to them, ended up in an extensive file on each and every person, which is then calculated by their AI machines via algorithms, so then you can all be neatly placed into boxes. As I have said consistently, we have done their jobs for them by not thinking enough. In the show, they must undergo extreme physical and intense psychological tests that transforms them all. Yes, what that's saying is they are programmed and brain entrainment to all fit nicely into their pre-selected boxes. That is MK Ultra in your face. They run counter programs to make the masses disoriented, frustrated, angry and off balance, which then enables them to control you more. And disappointingly, although not entirely surprising given we were all educated, not taught. The people complied with almost every request. But Triss had a secret, that she is divergent, or I would say a 15%, which means she doesn't fit into any one group. That would be now known on this show as an oops. If anyone knew of that secret, it would mean a certain death, as she discovers a growing conflict that threatens to unravel her seemingly peaceful society. This secret might help her save the people she loves, or it might destroy her. And this is the world Kim and I, and some of you listening tonight, live in. There are very few that don't fit in their boxes, and those people have become heavily targeted, particularly those who go against the official narrative and write our history and not theirs. Fewer people still will not sacrifice their own lives for the greater good of the all, for a mission that is certainly not beneficial to the individual carrying it out. As not only will you be targeted by the system, but the very people you're trying to save, all safely ensconced in their boxes also, and they will attack you with glee and with willful abandonment at times. All of you will have witnessed that in our own group, never mind further afield. It plots and creates families into breakups, loved ones and friends also, as the more truth you spit out, the more tightly knit the box people becomes. A massive divide and conquer program that reaches into every aspect of society, including those institutions said to be for our benefit, when clearly they're not. Likes of hospitals and schools, and military and agencies and governments. And last but not least, the church. THI and other shows like Randy's are in essence taking many of you out of your own boxes and back into the real world. Their whole world and boxes are based on pure fantasy and illusion of creating worlds within worlds. As the series Westworld described, based on a film in 1973 of the same title, and yet again it is described as a futuristic world. Like I keep saying, once you see the pattern, it always repeats. And the reason behind that will become prevalent later in the show, but also it is in the description of that series. The story takes place in Westworld, a fictional, technologically advanced Wild West theme park amusement park, populated by androids known as hosts. And the park caters to high-paying guests who may indulge their wildest fantasies within the park without fear of retaliation from the hosts, who are prevented by their programming from harming humans. Nice play on words. Perhaps it should be renamed from Westworld to Westgate World, and then it will make a whole heap more sense to regular THI listeners. The park is populated by bots. Sound familiar? Known as hosts, which is a vessel possession based term. Sound even more familiar? Maybe the 15% figure connects some dots for you now. If not, it will later. The park caters for the high-paying guests, it says. Yes, the elite playground. But it's not an individual park. It is the whole planet. They play in the park without fear of retaliation, they say, because the hosts are prevented from doing harm due to their programming. Are you seeing the picture now? They went further with their amusement of taking the piss out of the people. All of those movies or series just mentioned were all put out to take the piss out of us. The masses thought it was for their own entertainment. Wrong thinking. It was for their entertainment. They then added another set of movies for their own hilarity and your entertainment called The Hunger Games. Taken from the aptly named book called The Mockingjay, which tells of the mockingjay becoming a symbol of hope and rebellions. But it's far from the real meaning, and it's another piss take. Its real meaning and term is called the mockingbird. So who was the original mockingbird? Well, this is a reference to Thoth and his Pleiadian crew of usurpers, as they were avian. Not them avian, not the blue variety. And they have mocked our actions and thoughts ever since. The word thoughts originated from the name Thoth. Our thoughts manipulated via mind control and propaganda. But there's another modern method of that. It's called MK Ultra. I pondered on the term YMK. It does not stand as a shortened version of Mark, as the description on the internet of it will not state what MK means. And one has to wonder, is it M for Marduk and K for Kali Ma? Or given that they like to mirror things backwards, perhaps MK is KM and Kali Ma backwards. Makes sense. So what was the other mind manipulating and propaganda program linked to the Mockingjay? All in the words for those that see. Project Mockingbird, which is a CIA program that began in the early 1950s, or so they say. It was way earlier than that. And was tasked with manipulating news media for propaganda purposes. And it also funded several student cultural organisations and magazines as front organisations. CBS was the first original Mockingbird, 1923. The OSS was running it before then. So let's look at the description of that show, the Hunger Games trilogy, which takes place in an unspecified future time. The dystopian post-apocalyptic nation of Panem, located in North America. Yet again they mention of it as the future. That is spellcasting, so you don't think of the past or now. When if you look closely, it's already happened. So the nation of Panem derives from the Latin phrase panem et circumstances. Panem means bread. Now bread could be the loaf, but it also means money. Perhaps the next line or paragraph will make that clear, of which is the correct meaning. But the other part of that phrase means circus. Oh my, the scary clowns and the children's nighttime visitation fear program. Yes, it's real. The clown realm was after the wolf realm in your dream time state. That's why people were frightened of clowns. Perhaps now you'll understand why they are labelled clowns, which I'm glad to see that memetics reverse back on them, as it has appeared to have caught on in the alt media. Now, I'm told some of the top brass don't like that term being used against them. And whilst there is always some good people in any organisation, those that are trying to help the people, that term does not apply. If you're not, you deserve that title for failing the people. You are a clown. So the country of Panem consists of wealthy, which means bread, capital city. I've said it for that in that way for a reason. Capital, which is located in the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by 12, originally 13, poorer districts ruled by the capital. Yet again another reference to the 12 plus 1 we have covered in several shows, and perhaps a reference to the massively developed and populated city underneath Denver, or the several off-world entities housed underneath them mountains. The word capital derives from the Roman temple to Jupiter, and subsequently Drakey cakes and Zeus. Change one letter of capital and we are at capital, and we're back to money again. So is it capital, or the real meaning the capital, the head city where they harvest the capital? You have to think of yourselves in terms of harvesting. Why do you think social services is now called human resources? Because we are the resource is why. Resource in terms of capital, resource in terms of cattle, and a cattle term, stock, placed upon you and traded. And what we are trying to achieve here is not resource in terms of being a commodity, but which means regarding, followed by source. So in regards to source. So that then is another mimetic reversed back on them. The capital is lavishly rich, which suggests it's a capital, and technologically advanced, but the districts are in varying states of poverty, just like Rome, City of London and DC then. And the trilogy's narrator and protagonist Katniss Everdeen, which I'm convinced is an anagram of some sort of piss take, but I've never been able to work it out, lives in District 12, the poorest region of Panem, located in the Appalachia, where people regularly die of starvation. Now, as punishment for a past rebellion against the capital, called the Dark Days, which could well be a reference to the Nights of Svarog, in which District 13, 12 plus 1, was supposedly destroyed. One boy and one girl from each of the 12 remaining districts between the ages of 12 and 18 are selected by lottery to complete an annual pageant called the Hunger Games. Now, the games are a televised event in which the participants are called tributes. Tribute is likely in reference to the American income tax system. You are not paying income tax. What you are paying is a voluntary tribute to the Crown. And then children are forced to fight to the death in a dangerous public arena. So the children who die are a tribute, which is a sacrifice to the capital. The winning tribute, however, and his or her home district are then rewarded with food, supplies and riches. And the purposes of the Hunger Games are to provide entertainment for the capital. It's a seducement program. Now do you see the comparisons? And also to remind, it is said, the districts of the capital's power and a lack of remorse, forgetfulness and forgiveness for the failed rebellion of the current competitors' ancestors. Now in the show, District 2 was known as Masonry. Well, I never. And designated as the Peacekeepers, which is the same name used for the UN. Peacekeepers, my ass. Self-certain jackasses at best. And demonic satanics at worst. Yes, you, the UN. Now, District 1 was known as Luxury. Yes, like the cities below our feet, full of luxury, all at our expense. Now, that series was very popular due to your programming. Why do I say that? But it was a great series, Thomas. Yes, if you don't think enough. Remember the term on this show where I said fact is fiction and fiction is fact. So let's ponder on that and think of the concept of that show. A game where they get the children to fight each other to the death, all to get food or supplies for their district and supply entertainment for the elites. It's on a par with medals for killing people, is it not? Yet too few see it for what it is. But it's only a show, Thomas. Yes, but look around you and see it's already happened and is happening. For the average African, Indian or some Middle Eastern children, this is their reality now. And America and the Western world is not that far behind. As more and more fight each other for scraps of food, money or existence. This is not fiction. That is fact. Just because you have the 5 basics in life should not mean we have to ignore those that don't. We have ignored them is another fact. And this show and group is about alerting you not only to the cabal crimes, but to the people's crimes also of not caring enough for others. It's not a one-sided dance. But because the favourite in the show keeps winning, which is the focused distraction aspect of the show, you forget all the children that have been killed for her to continue. Whilst Katniss, the pretty one, again a focused distraction for the viewer, is hailed as the hero, and love won through with her partner. But since when has gaining love been achieved by killing the competitors off? It's all very Greek and Roman god stuff, that to me. And the question at this point is, how many of you watched the show and focused on the hero winning? And how many focused on the children who died? Be honest. The former for most, and that is down to the programming. It's only fiction, but if you look around, it's not fiction at all, it's fact. It's just them putting it in your face. Now here comes the holy shit part, or one of several in today's show. With thousands of children going missing globally each year, and some of you have heard of the human hunting parties the elites do to us. For those new, yes, you heard that right. Human hunting parties. What if a real Hunger Games was going on under our feet for their entertainment, with the children stolen from the surface? Far-fetched? You decide. The fact that it is a possibility should alarm everyone, and it's certainly not beyond the probability of these psychopaths that put this stuff out, is it? Children killing each other off for food and supplies. Ponder on that whole concept. Is that normal? Is that life? The gist of that series is the elites, or elites, correct term, lived a life of luxury in their capital at our expense, and their entertainment was watching us all fight each other and kill each other off. Sound familiar? If not by now, you need a reality check of where you are at. Essentially, you are still in the world of illusion and delusion with that thinking and mindset. Then we come to the deeper levels of programming on a public-based level, and the Harry Potter series. Sorry, Holly. That binds all children and adults into the dark arts of witchcraft and magic. So-called average children are attending a witchcraft and wizardry school, like that ever happens in their world. Those going into those schools and practices are carefully pre-selected based on their profiling. But even with that show, they can't resist the stab at the so-called lower people, can they? The school was called Hogwarts, which means pigsty. Oops. And they wound through the mystical realms and devious arts with such enlightening titles as the Order of the Phoenix, which was said to stop Voldemort, that they reacted the Order of the Phoenix. So what is the Order of the Phoenix? Well, in the book it says the Order of the Phoenix is a secret society. That should have rung red flags and bells straight away. Which works from Sirius Black's dark family. Oh my. Home to defeat Voldemort. So they reactivated the Hebrewic Phoenix, which is the Bennu bird, which is also a reference to the Dark Destroyer, to kill the Voldemort. Voldemort is the archenemy of Harry Potter, who according to a prophecy had the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. For those that remember the From Russia with Love 8 trilogy, that last sentence will have a deeper meaning now. The Dark Lord, which may well be Anu. This is further enhanced in the show or book, with Voldemort using the aptly named Draco Malfoy, who arranges transportation of Death Eaters into Hogwarts by a pair of vanishing cabinets. The Death Eaters are the djinns. The vanishing cabinets, likely with mirrors, are the portals. All very Alice in Wonderland and the Looking Glass technology to me. That show was not a war of the people against the dark, but the gods' war of controlling everything for themselves. And this is what's playing out here now, with Rothschilds and the Order of the Black Sun taking each other out, not to help the people, oh no, but to be the king of everything. Remember, the system always creates a counterpart. So you think by removing the one group it's all finished. No, the counterpart steps in and it's new boss, same as the old boss. We have characters like Aslan, which means lion in Turkish, is the creator of Narnia, and he's supposed to symbolize Jesus Christ and the power of good, it is said. But I thought Jesus was the shepherd or the lamb, not the lion. A lion looking after sheep never ends too well, does it? And then we have Queen Jadis, the White Witch, who has ruled over Narnia for 100 years and represents the power of Satan or evil in the world. The White Witch represents Satan. Neither white or black witchcraft is good for this planet, but using the reversed spell casting of white witches are Satan or evil. The Ers, Rus and Aryan people had white wizards called Volkoffs, and they were there as knowledge-based people and to defend against the dark-skinned black magicians operating on this planet. But they were destroyed or fled during the fall of the closest moon, and it was a while before they returned with the knowledge and the teachings. But during that time, around 40,000 years ago, new humans were seeded here and arrived suddenly, according to the mainstream science opinion, in the form of the yellow, red and black races to establish domain again before the return of the white race. Now people may ask why a white person or narrator of the book would do or say that. Why make the white out to be evil? Well, you can be any colour and be evil, not just white or black or any other colour. Well, there's a few things to that. Rowling may not be aware of the Great White Race, as they were called, although not all in that race were actually white. So it's not a colour of the skin type group. But what I suspect is the sub-grey race are using these plots to defeat the return of the white race, who still operate in the right way of working for soul development. The fallen elite white and the sub-grey, like some of their dark predecessor gods, are not interested in soul development and wish to cheat, not only on soul development by using external tech also, but they also have spent hundreds of thousands of years trying to cheat death, looking for immortality potions, not so they can stay alive, because after death you are reborn anyway, but to cheat source and carry on their harvesting programs. J.K. Rowling is one of those elites, friends with the pedophile Gordon Brown, and supported Obama and Hillary for the White House. She is not some ordinary book writer that got lucky. In their world, to reach those levels, you have to be a part of their system. And then you have the name of the next book, Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Is that a reference to the last male parent? The Dark Prince that Anna von Reitz suggested that Kim should work with? Oh my. Anyway, he's dead now, and so that's mute. That book was followed by Deathly Hallows, which is the same name as Halloween, which means all hail the dead, calling in of the deathly, which is the dead, to do the dirty deeds for the order. And yes, that's what Halloween is all about. Whilst people parade about in masks and decorate or eat pumpkins, the elites are doing rituals to call in the dead and are using the children doing spell casts to do so. Hey kids, this is all good, harmless fun. Let's call in the dead from the spirit world. Let's play dark art games. Use black or white magic, it makes no difference, to do spell casts on people. And let's make a cleverly disguised children's book onto and into films and promote them as something good for the world to see. Create theme parks for it, with the majority of people oblivious to the dark, sinister and evil intentions behind it. Are you seeing the picture now? The last two mentioned was Hunger Games and Harry Potter, using the children for their entertainment. Using the children to promote their programs, just like the Nazi youth and Tomorrow Belongs to Me, just like Greta Thunberg to promote their latest fear and capital harvesting program. Remember, we are the capital, a human resource that they think is for their usage and benefits as they see fit. Don't believe me? Please explain why 900,000 children in America go missing permanently every year. Wake up and see the fact, not the fiction. Reality is all around you once you see, And once you see, a whole new world comes into view. And yes, it's ugly. As whilst you all slept, they played their game. Whilst you all ignored it, they played their game. Thankfully, while many rested in their slumber, there was a few who didn't and fought back. Now it's time to play our game, not theirs. Hi all and welcome back. We're going to shift a bit now. It will shift backwards and forwards during this show. But there's another element to this invoked by Crowley and other occultist programs, OTO, etc., including witchcraft, light or dark. That really makes zero difference. I keep saying it, but it has to stick. There is no difference. They have told you this in several shows, Lost Girl and Once Upon a Time in particular. All magic comes with a price. They didn't say all black magic comes with a price, did they? No, all of it. Which means all. And this is our problem. They are obligated to tell us what they're doing. And we've ignored it. New Age cults, ritualistic festivals held by the elites, the Hebrew program, top clown level meetings, and all meetings with the former trustee were all held on or applied to the cycles of the moon. All of them. Religious cultures are wrapped into it. Look at the Muslim crescent. It is the moon with the star, is what they say now, and they coloured it in. But the original was a black sun and the moon. Muhammad said that Yahweh, the God, lived where? The moon. Why would the supposed God live on a bloody moon? Think, and think different. Yahweh and Lilith are both represented by the moon, both connected to the Hebrew Anunnaki and subsequently the Draco. You have a new and full moon at regular intervals. That is essentially every 14 and a half days now. It was 14 days. But the distances between Earth and the moon have increased. So the half moon cycle now is every 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a moon cycle period and a heads up to the occult practices of the dark forces and their programming division. The moon is a hollowed out object with a drive capacity and was placed in geostationary orbit here a long time back by the Draco with technology. Like I said, technology that is not advanced, it's ancient. It only appears advanced to us because we've been denied access to it by the control system. That technology, more times than not, was not created by ETs or NTs, but by organic humans, based here and on other worlds. The idea that they're more advanced than us because of technology is another myth, and a reinforcement spellcast of the limitation and reductionism program that has been ran on us. An example of that thinking, look no further than Kim, the trust, and the quantum system. Some clowns on this planet talk of quantum systems. We action it, not talk it. Why do you think a human was put in place to run a system that spans the multiverse? Not a planet, not a solar system, not a galaxy, and not just this universe, but the multiverse. This came after several other groups had ran it and used it for greed and power. All of them failed. These tasks and positions were denied to this type of human for a reason. Not all human and humanoids are the same. But this soul spirit combined with this vessel is potentially the most advanced species, and also we are the closest species to source. That then created the envy and harvesting program, as the dark perpetuated everywhere and corrupted. But they cannot corrupt certain individuals, no matter how much they try. Like I said, don't for 1 second think that ETs are more advanced than us in a normal setting. They appear advanced because they reduced us, but also we allowed them to by being lazy. An example of being lazy can be garnered by what is in or takes place in your own kitchen. Food used to be prepared by the person. It was nurtured and cared for. And that essence was then retained within the cooking and then consumed at meal times. Now everything is done by machines. Blenders, choppers, dicers, pre-packaged, pre-prepared, and then the worst aspect, irradiated in a microwave. And people babble on about the dangers of 5G. Really? So in the kitchen alone, we have allowed technology to replace our own direct life force energy to engage with the food we eat. Ponder on that for a second, the implications of that. And now, take that out of the kitchen and apply it to the rest of your interactions in life. I will ask again, are you seeing the pattern now? Technology is not for our entertainment or convenience. It is replacing us and pushing forward the clown's transhumanism program, which is essentially going back a full circle of the fake gods seeking their immortality potion. Back then it was a potion, now it is technology-based machines. We have our own inherent technology if we work on the self. But that is too time-consuming, some people will say, and yet many will waste endless hours arguing over points of view on topics that don't or won't affect your lives. Like theatre-based politics, flat earth, chemtrails, the moon is natural or not, or 5G. When we keep asking the question, what happened with 1, 2, 3 and 4G? There's a reason why humans were sought after, this particular human, and used as trade to the off-world. Hello, Swiss Indo. They were one of those traders. And it was more so if those humans were white. Why? Because they are the most creative being in the universe or elsewhere. And people can say that's a bit racist, but not when it's a fact. It's not. Not when you have the genetics of the original white race. You can also choose to ignore the fact that most wars involved the white race in the last 110 years that decimated their populace, or face facts that the white race here is being systematically decimated and reduced mentally, physically and emotionally on a massive scale. We heard on Thursday of the dark forces and magicians only attacking one colour, and that was from 110 down to 13,000 years ago. Once you see, it is no different now in our own current time period. As an example of our capabilities, if a new planet arrived close to Earth and it was tasked to colonise it, and you placed humans on one side of that planet and the Draco on the other, after 10 to 12,000 years, humans will have advanced it to the technological level that we have now. The Draco would reach the same stage in 120,000 years. So they used us to create. Ponder on that. Whilst many people babble on about being little me. You may see yourself that way, the rest of the universe doesn't. Back to the moon. A natural moon would not have a rotational pattern that only shows one side of it facing the planet. Fact. Harvesting and witchcraft practices are and were also done on a moon-based cycle. And then you have the ultimate in effery. The female menstruation cycle matches up with the moon cycles as well. Here is a quote from a female health site. Ovulation happens around day 14 if you have a 28-day cycle, right in the middle of your menstruation cycle. Oops. Day 14 is 2 weeks, which is half of the full cycle of 28 days, which is 2 weeks later. Are you seeing the picture now? People will ask why and how that happened in that precise cycle. Well, my take on it is it's similar, or exactly the same, to the Solomon issue of binding the demons to earth for 3,000 years. And I believe that Kali Ma, which is Lilith, bound all females to the moon, not the Earth or the solar cycle. This, in esoteric terms, cuts off the solar and planetary being who were symbiotic to each other and were there for their harmonic resonance to apply to the all. With them gone, in came anti-life, and inorganic life flourished. This is why we have had a raft of fake solar beings like Ra. Jesus was the sun S-O-N, not the sun S-U-N. Vishnu, Krishna, and several others. The sun, which is male, cannot flourish without the female planetary being and vice versa. They were in the past called the Logos, the divine wisdom manifested into the creation. Look at it in terms of one-on-one and with the one. The Logos were the one-on-one, and with the one, which is source. The solar being was replaced with fakes, and so half of the Logos fell. But what happened to the other half? This brings in the Saturn-Moon matrix into play, and the negative base frequencies that system operated for many thousands of years, until it was permanently damaged and declared not operable back in August and September of 2015. The moon fell first. The Saturn being, Set, followed shortly after. This was around the time the alt media reported the hexagon shape that appeared on the top of Saturn. That was the physical sign of the fall of that planet out of the dark hands. The main fall of the actual matrix here was late November 2015. So we have all females here trapped in with lunar cycles. Lunar, which is where the term lunatic originates from, because of the negative base frequencies that applied there. But there's also a much deeper issue with this than saying females are in sync and subsequently in varying degrees of lunacy. Although that does have an amusing value to it from a male perspective at times. But during these full moon cycles, the crime and murder rates rises exponentially. That cannot be explained by modern analysts, as they are restricted in their research, but also lack the hidden knowledge that would support rational explanations. The female has a tendency to get very tetchy, irritable, and at times a bit psychotic during these cycles. This is due to the frequencies that the females are bound to via the moon. And this raises very big and deep questions that will disturb many, but it has to be said to then correct it and heal it. What if the females are bound to the moon? What are the implications of that? What are the consequences of that also? Well, the implications are if they are bound to the moon, it means that the female form is not bound to the earth. And more importantly, neither is the planetary mother. Oops. So before half of our listeners go ballistic or reject that out of hand, I did warn reactions would be tested. Let's look deeper into the evidence to support that. And remember, this is not a male-female divide and conquer narrative. If one falls, we both do. It's that simple. The moon, they say, is connected to the earth by a magnetic pull. But is it the magnetic pull or the matrix frequency base creating the pull? Now, for visual effects of what has taken place, do you remember a child's game where an adult will pick up their child by both arms and then swing the child round in circles whilst the adult pivoted on the same spot? But the child always faces the adult. The child does not swing on a flat plane. It wobbles up and down depending on the speed of the adult spinning. This is in effect the same motion and pull the moon has on the earth, except it should be the other way round. The moon should wobble, not the earth. How can a small moon pull on a larger planet? Saturn has 70 plus moons. Do they pull Saturn out of sync and make it wobble? We only have one moon. Imagine the wobbling over 70 would do. And the same applies with Jupiter or Mars. It makes no sense and goes against the laws of physics that even the mainstream puts out. As science tells us, a planet pulls a moon into its gravitational field effect. But what they're telling us is that our moon does the opposite. What also bollocks that is. We are told if the moon is not there, we would go out of sync. We would lose the ebb and flow of the tides. The tide or the tides. Funny word, that. So let's look deeper for some possible clues. Old English, tide, is a point or portion of time. Due time, a period, a season, a feast day, and canonical hour. So what we can deduce from that is, tide is time that runs for a period, or is it a period as in menstrual cycle? Question mark. It is a season and a feast day, which are the harvesting and ritual days that we're all familiar with now. Then in comes the church aspect, as per usual, the canonical hour, which is a church-appointed portion, time of the day, for an office of devotion. That tells you the church is worshipping the moon also. From Proto-Germanic tidi, which means division of time, source also of Old Saxon tid, the Dutch version Tjad, Old High German version Zit, and the German version Zeit, which means time. From the Pi root dit, division of time, and the suffix form of the root is da, which means to divide. De Arth, Kabbalah tree of death, divide. So what can we garner from the most important aspect of the relation between the moon and the earth is the tide, which is a division of time, runs on cycles and or seasons the same as the moon cycles. And the last part is it means to divide. Divide what, you may ask? The female from the planet is what? With the male solar being replaced, the female, and in particular the Logos, was divided by time on a cyclical basis and bound to a false creation. The tides are also described as the rise and the fall. Yes, that is what they represent in an overview thinking processing. Those who rose and those who fell. I mentioned the German version Zeit. Alt media will be more familiar with Zeitgeist, which means spirit of the ages or spirit of the times. Zeit is time, Geist is spirit, ghost, ghoul or jinn. Are there any visual signs of things changing for this section of the show? Yes. The earth is moving. Earth is expanding. Earth is stretching, waiting for the return of something. What is wobbling now and is visual is the moon. We'll be back shortly. Hi all and welcome back. Right, let's go deeper again. There are several more layers to come. The largely fake scripture books told us man fell. But man is woman also in terms of an earth-based description. The term man also describes male and female, so man is not a single archetype-based statement. Let's look at the ultimate in human limitation and reduction program, shall we? Known as religion. Not one religion, but all of them. Designed to get humans to go external and not internal. The church says man fell. But if you look closer and past the statement, it was actually the female version who fell, or in reality was taken hostage by the dark forces and bound to the moon in a blood sacrifice. The church talks of the Holy Trinity, which is one on one and with one. And that will become clearer later as to why I said that. They state, the church, it is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit or Ghost. And yet too few ask, where the hell is the mother or the daughter? Why would the church leave out the mother? The mother who incubates and produces new life. They then go on to explaining the, quite frankly, ridiculous conspiracy theory of the Immaculate Conception, to describe introducing certain so-called gods and or teachers that came here. It's jackassery levels of stupidity. Even in the Garden of Eden tale, it was Eve, who is Lilith, who fell. But Adam was cast out with her. And like I said earlier, if one falls, so does the other. So the question remains, why does the Church leave out the female on earth? And some will point to the fact that this is a patriarchy-based planet as to why. Which is odd, when 9 of the last 10 parents were females. Oops. To those new, the parents were the second level of the control system, at least 2 levels above the Illuminati. And also most leaders of the covens, which is the 3rd level of the control system, were all females. So that renders that opinion mute. The reason is the females, in essence, physical and spirit-based form, are not ground to or of this planet is why, and explains why the female archetype is drastically out of balance here. They are lost. But on a subconscious level, you all know this. But many cannot bring it to the fore due to the trauma it causes. So is there evidence to support the fact that females know this on a subconscious base level? Yes. The reaction to my piece in late 2018 said it all on feminism. I personally was expecting some flack for that piece, and I was delighted to be proven wrong. I don't always like to be right. There's some things I say that I would actually love to be wrong, and that was one of them. That piece generated more emails, private messages and chats than any other piece I have done before or since. 90% of the responses were from females. Not one disagreed with the content as stated in that piece, which in essence was a critique piece on all the females, not just one individual or a group. And what that told me is you all know deep down their form or archetype has fallen from what it was and what it should be. If you recognise the problem, you can then provide the solution to fix it. And this is why many males are embracing, or perhaps over-embracing, their female aspect to bring it back to the balance. And why the male archetype of provider and protector has been eroded, more so in our lifetime than previous epochs of time. A long time back, most of the planetary beings in the solar system were females. Select males were connected more as solar beings than planetary beings. That is your logos. The female planetary beings were given a choice during the intense wars in the past. Stay with the planet or leave. and several of them chose to abandon their planets and went elsewhere. That, in source-based terms, is a sacrilege, to abandon your own creation. And this probably explains why we were told that goddesses, as we would call them now, are banned from this creation. They're not allowed to help or interfere with the restoration process that's going on currently. That was largely caused, as we've been informed, and through my own knowledge, by their ilk. But it was not only females that caused the fall. It was the fake male gods playing dick-swinging games with the universe. Go and watch the film The Gods of Egypt. Set. Bye-bye, 5 years ago. And I will repeat again, for the hard of hearing, this is not a male or female finger-pointing blame exercise. If one falls, regardless of which one, we both fall. Male gods and some solar beings were no better. They were seduced by the power factor and control systems, the fallout of which we are still experiencing and enduring to this day. It is a fact that females were not the only ones affected by the moon cycles either. Dismissed as myth in many books and shows, that was lost and rendered into fiction as they wrote their story, not ours. But the other being affected by it was the wolf, and subsequently the wolf man. Yes, the wolf man is real, more in the past than the present, although a variant of them still roams our planet and is known as the Sasquatch, and is still spoken of in terms of, in tribal people's circles, of the animal totem. Humans and animals in the past had a far greater connection than we do today. Today, it seems, is all about an engineered creation that was not inherent to this planet, but was introduced here to change things not for the betterment, but for the opposite. Just like the domesticated cat. There is a reason why it's said that dog is man's best friend. It used to be the wolf, until that species fell and ended up as the first realm in the astral layer trap. There were several animal totems back then, not just the wolf: horses, dragons, eagles, the proper cat, which is the large ones with round pupils, not lizard eyes, bats, bears, and some others, and I'll touch on them more soon. But what is an animal totem, and what is or was it for? A totem is a spirit being, a sacred object or symbol of a tribe, clan, family, or individual. Some Native American tribes' tradition states that each person is connected with up to 9 different animals that will accompany him or her through life, acting as guides. Different animal guides, also called spirit guides or power animals, come in and out of our lives depending on the direction that we are headed and the tasks that need to be completed along our journey. The tribe's beliefs further explain that a totem animal is one that is with you for life, both in the physical and the spiritual world. Though people may identify with different animal guides throughout their lifetimes, it is this one totem animal that acts as the main guardian spirit. We had the guardians then, not the masters, for those that you remember from Russia with Love 8. And a connection was shared, either through an interest in the animal, characteristics, dreams, or other interactions. Essentially, these animals were our spirit guides and can also be described in the past, in a modern day term, the higher self. But this was all before the collapse of certain species and the fake constructed world of the astral realm was created, not only to enhance the fall of man, but other species here as well. The wolf fell, the trolls fell, the trolls conned or controlled. The fae, or the fairies in particular, fell. Some of the trees fell. The cat fell into spellcasts, and why Elites have them on their family badges. The dragons fell spectacularly, and they were replaced with hybrid creations operating for and by the dark forces. So why did so many of the creational-based beings fall? They all fell for the seducement of power, greed, and control by using magic, which is fake technology. Go and watch Once Upon a Time or Lost Girls to see that. They tell you. And there's several other shows. Instead of working on themselves and using their abilities, and this is why I tell you, all of you, once again, your abilities, once you attain them, it requires maximum personal responsibility, or you will lose them far quicker than you've gained them, and subsequently fall dramatically. What if you don't stop? You keep falling. And that's what happened to a lot of the species here. So why do so few have these abilities, you may ask? It's simple. Too few work on themselves and too few exhibit personal responsibility, seeking others, be it governments, gods or ETs, to save them is why. And that is a fact, no matter how harsh it sounds. A line used in the series Lost Girl, which if you get past the overtly sexual elements in that show, tells you all about the dark side of magic. And even if you are a light warrior, and also how all the old spirit guides fell. That line said, the gods introduced magic to enable the destruction of humans. Oops. There was another species in the past that humans were directly connected to and also interbred with, the elves. Their fall was steep also, and morphed into the dark elves, of which the epitome is the entity known as Batman. Superhero? I think not. For some who can bilocate and engage in certain missions, you may have encountered that entity for real. It appears in many situations whereby certain targeted people are attacked and raped, male and female, tortured and abused. That entity was using cloaking technology so that even some who could see in those realms were blind to what was taking place. That is now known as mirror tech. And once that illusion was shattered, those problems that affected those people largely went away. The astral rape, although experienced in the physical via the cords, is a very real event. But society or quack doctors or educated psychologists, most of which don't know their ass from their elbows, will tell you that you are nuts and need a mental evaluation. No. The irony is it is they who require mental evaluation, and in some cases, whether they are human or not. Their ridiculous diagnosis tells the patient that they require mind-altering and brain-controlling drugs, or be institutionalized for your audacity to report the truth, which their tiny minds can't comprehend. But then again, the medical system, or the Medici system, is controlled by them. And yes, astral rape is real. Ask anyone who's had one-on-one sessions with Simon Parks and were raped. At least 6 that I know of. Not whilst he was physically there, but his bilocation abilities. And yes, he blamed Anu, his alleged father, but that was a cop-out. I know his frequency and he knows mine, which is why after initially agreeing to come on our show, he declined. His abilities may work on many, but not me. These type of rapes also took place in the ET group behind the Cosmic Voice show also. Sunfire was regularly raped. Which sent her into a mental spiral downwards, of which she's not recovered. Chloe was also my ex-partner, plus 4 other females and 1 male, whilst the female leader of that group ignored the problem. Others chose to fix it, and the main protagonist was the Dark Elf, more commonly known to you as Batman. Batman is not a superhero at all. The bat was an animal totem in the past that fell, and there is a reason New York is called Gotham, and a reason why New York is a cesspool of dark, satanic and anti-human programs. There is a reason that place is the place for the often repeated born in and born to. Just connect the dots. At this point we come to a conundrum. Was it the chicken or the egg? Who fell first? And what caused the runaway train of separation of mother, spirit, animals and totems? The case can be argued it is a combination of things such as magic and seducement being part of it. But before I give my answer, I will remind people of a piece I did in February of 2018, where I asked the question of why every species that comes to this planet becomes corrupted, damaged or evil. And I asked the question, the conundrum posed, is something wrong with the planet and subsequently Mother Earth? Some didn't like that question or suggestion being posed, which is understandable, as it is a traumatic realization if it's true. I also posed the question of grounding with bare feet if the earth is corrupted. Again, that wasn't popular, largely due to the New Age program, which regular listeners to this show will now realise that was another seducement and distraction program for those who had moved away from the church. Why did they all fall? Because they were looking for the mother is why. The earth lost their mother and was bound to the moon along with the other females. The caring, nurturing aspect was gone and replaced with a dog-eat-dog, nasty, competitive streaks, which is the worst aspects of the male archetype, and evolved into both archetypes. And this is what we are correcting now. It's about restoring the balance. It is not a coincidence that the two people involved at the top of the trust is a male and a female, both of which have the opposite archetypes in balance within the one vessel. That balance of male and female within the one vessel has to be spread far and wide on this planet to not only enable healing, but end the dark and the imbalance of the planet and its living beings. Ending the dualistic archetype of patriarchy and matriarchy, neither of which worked in the past, and it won't in the future either. For those who are pushing for matriarchy now, we had it in the past and was quite possibly the worst epoch of time ever on this planet. So please quit that divisive shit. We are one on one and with the one. One on one is us. One is not defined as an individual male or female, but a combined one on one. And with the one that has long been forgotten on this planet, which is all down to one program called religion, that one is Source. When one-on-one combine, the Trinity kicks in and the Source is restored, or returned as an integral part of your life. The duality then becomes the triality, which is the real heart centre and where the love frequency kicks in. Message to men. Unless you embrace your female aspect, you will never gain the heart centre or the sword. Yes, society predictably labels anything that is beneficial into demeaning terms, a typical tactic to pull you back into the old system and you'll be called a wuss, a sissy, henpecked or weak. All reinforced by parents from a young age who repeat memes, all passed down to them by the programmers of the system. Real men don't cry, they would say. Wrong. Real men do cry. And it's not sissy, girly or some other demeaning name either. It's actually a real strength, not a weakness. Men are told to be tough, don't cry, and exhibit manly strengths and have six-packs. People with external body strength via muscles and toning belies a lack of strength and subsequent weakness from within. It is another mask. Toughness, real toughness, is internal fortitude, not external fortitude. Hi all and welcome back. We're going to go deeper again. So it's back to the 2 weeks we started with Kim and asking what is this 2 week shit. So I checked the lunar cycles to see if the 2 weeks from that time then fitted in with another of their lunar cycles of full or new moon. Anyway, it didn't, which is a pointer for us and is a sign of progression. Those not operating on the moon cycles. But upon checking the lunar cycles, I then spotted something else on this particular lunar graphic called lunation. That started with 1200, 1201, 1202 and went up to 1212. And then everything opened up and it was like I was viewing a giant library and all the books in one go, all at the same time. Why would it start with 1200 and not 1201 for the 12 months of the year? Because the 1200 is the hidden one. Remember, I've been pondering on what is 12 plus 1 for many years until I made sense with it. Well, this is another example of that. 13 moon cycles, but the 1 is hidden with 0, 0. There are 12 plus 1 months, 1 is hidden. There are 12 plus 1 zodiacs, and 1 is hidden. And there are 12 plus 1 earth chakras, but the 1 is hidden, which is in Russia. Coincidence? I think not. But these missing elements, but they're not missing for those of the dark intent. And if you are moon worshipping, you are operating with dark intent, whether knowingly or not. And full confirmation of that will be garnered in the rest of this piece. The 12 with 00 could also be a pointer to Rahu and Ketu. I'm pondering on that, but that's for another day. And a popular New Age and alt media program is astrology. There's always some special alignment with Jupiter, Pluto, etc., and mentions of retrogrades, which means going backwards, or looping. Sound familiar? With the 13,000 year loop program? And the fact that so many in New Age and alt media post a popular meme and thinking of it as unity, it is not. It is a closed loop system. The Mobius loop is the figure 8 on its side. It's a closed system that goes retrograde. A real system would have an open gate at the end for expansion, so the 8 should be a 9, which is the number of completion. One could also call it ascension. So many galaxies viewed online or through telescopes are closed circles, including our own, which means they all fell into the loop. Those that haven't or are opening, which is ours, will have a circle and a spiral arm going away from the circle, just like the figure 9. A closed loop is a stagnation program, because if you leave anything in the same system over time, it degrades, or using their terms, retrogrades. Personally, for me, astrology doesn't work because there's a key component missing. There is a missing constellation and a missing month. So the 13 is condensed into the 12, just like the Hunger Games, 13 districts condensed into the 12. So the whole topic then becomes distorted. How can you make alignments that contains 13 components, but it's only calculated and condensed into the 12? It distorts everything and makes all alignments only with Uranus, if you ask me. Pun intended. And this is why all those planetary alignments and predictions posed on the alt media don't work. It can't possibly work with a component missing. The hidden aspect is always the key. It's like the Cabal hand. The one you see is a problem, but it's not the problem. That is the hidden hand. The number 0 is a more recent creation. It was not part of the original numbers. It couldn't be, because 0 is nothing and has an inorganic numerical value in essence. 1 and forward is an organic number and has a numerical value. 0 is a description of the singularity, the void, the nothingness or dark matter. But I'm going to state here and now, there's no such thing as dark matter. It has and contains nothing, they say, because dark cannot create. Because they contain nothing to be creative with. So it can only destroy. Only the light can create matter, like source. And as we are a spark of it, we can also create. And this is what those jackasses in the Order of the Black Sun don't get. You are all created by the light, as only the light can create. Dark twist an existing creation into a devolution spiral, closed loops, and anti-life, and subsequently antimatter, which is why the antimatter particle is destructive. It turns everything into nothing, 0. In a toroidal system, which is shaped like the egg timer, in the centre there is the singularity. It's also called the void, where nothing exists. But if life or light creates, it pulls from and or enters the void, and uses their abilities to manifest something out of nothing can then be produced. This is what happens in the birth of a child. Two creational beings combine and create a new living creation. And this is where it gets heavy or heavier into life and creation. A woman can be seen as the zero, as that is the same shape as the vagina, and the man the figure 1, and also the same genital shape as the number 1, for most men anyway. The 1 enters the 0 and creates another 1 and 0. But this then begs the great question, is how can the 0 create? How can the nothing, which is inorganic, create something which is organic? So let's go around the conundrum a bit, shall we? We are told man fell. But what if it was the woman who fell, like we mentioned earlier? Of which there are a few examples of the human females mixing with the gods. The goddess has been banned from this creation altogether according to the council and my own personal knowledge, for the almighty mess they made here in the past, plus the planetary beings abandoning their planets. And like I said, this is not necessarily a male or female issue in the comparative sense, because I'm going to keep saying it, if one falls, we both do. They are symbiotic. Despite what the satanic geneticists say, we need each other for wholeness. But there is the other example of how the female fell mentioned earlier, which is why this piece is multifaceted, will eventually all tie in. The moon bounding of females into the moon cycle, its energies and frequencies, which was then enhanced by the Saturn Moon Matrix frequency-based program, and created lunatics. It tells you what it is. It's all in the word. Lunar means moon, tick means parasite. So the moon and those attached or bound to it become parasitic, a virus that spreads amongst the populace. That was their intention. Which explains why during the female period they tend to go a bit squirrely, to put it mildly. Why? Because on a frequency-based level, all females here were not connected or grounded to Mother Earth, but were sometime in the past bound to the inorganic creation of the moon. The Earth is an organic creation which has a numerical value of 1. The moon is inorganic and a false creation, and so has a numerical value of 0. The moon is feminine based, and so subsequently it was the female who fell from creation, or the organic model. Far more so on a psychological frequency and esoteric level than a physical based level, although it has bled through into physical as my feminist piece attested to. In the past, there were androgynous beings, which is a combined male and female in the same vessel, which is now symbolic of a modern being achieving masculine and feminine balance within, not external. And over the past 30 to 40 years, we have spoken of the rapid decline of the westernized women in particular, away from the feminine archetype ideals and into many of the worst forms of the masculine archetype. And subsequently, to counter, nature always counters the imbalance and has caused many of the masculine type to overcompensate on their feminine aspects, and which is why so many men have lost their protector or warrior aspects. So given there was a single being with both male and female traits, and that was divided into separate components, originally the creation aspect of making a new baby was one-to-one creation, not the 1-to-0 creation as described earlier. Right, let's go deeper again. 0 and 1 are the binary figures used for the inorganic creation known as the computer, same as AI, which is a machine, and inorganic, which means it is 0. It requires the 1, the organic, to input into it to bring it to life, or something resembling life. But it's not life, is it? It's not consciousness, and it wasn't created by the organic 1 and 1, but 1 and 0, which is how the birth cycle went after females were bound to the inorganic moon. Binaries means duo, and also to bind. They bound the duo to the half and half creational aspect of inorganic and organic life. And to remove that bind and duo, it requires it to go back to the original, which was the trinary, which is 1 on 1 and with the 1. Male and female organic creations mixing with source, organic creator of all life. We are all part of the same number, as we are all part of source. In the Matrix, it mentions of becoming the one. And because our world is based in a comparative mindset, not a cooperative mindset, our minds think Neo is the one, as in the one and the only. But to get an understanding of this piece, you have to ponder on Neo as not being the single digit number, but the one being the all. The all that is connected to the one. We are all the one. And to make that connection make a little more sense, what happens when a new creation is born? It's called a newborn child, and subsequently it's called neonatal. Oops. So when you are born, you are the Neo. Now you just have to start acting like it. You are the one, and you are the all. When you do the sexual act that leads to the new creation, it is started by the one, which is the male, and the female then combines it with herself and makes it grow. But how is what most don't get or think deep enough on. The first sign of a new creation starts with a single cell. Some politicians, military and agency goons never go beyond that single cell, it seems. But I digress. The cell then divides into two. But here's the kicker. For a brief moment in time, the single cell actually disappears completely. It vanishes into thin air. That is a scientific fact, except science cannot explain it except to call it an anomaly. Well, it's not an anomaly at all. So where does the cell go if it vanishes? Essentially a different time and space. Now Levashov stated it was another dimension and said it was possibly the fourth. But I'm going to disagree with that, because I believe in the here and now. That cell goes back to source to provide the spark of creation. One on one with one. Which then returns as two cells in the physical. It then repeats. 2 go missing and 4 return. 4 go missing and 8 return. That, I believe, is the natural organic creation. The one on the one with the one. The original Trinity. And the trinary creation of life, which the Church and their off-world satanic counterparts took away. Now this is about to go deeper again. So with one on one, with the one being the original creation, where does the 0 and 1 fit in? The answer is, it didn't. As binary is an in part inorganic false creation. Binary is the machine, remember. So what does this all mean? What it means is the spark of creation was done or provided by something else. With man or woman fallen, the 0 replaced the creational aspect of creating life. So if source was the 1, what is the 0? The void of the dark. The nothingness and the dark matter of creation. And here is something to ponder on. What if the cells didn't disappear to the source, but the void? What if, as the females who are bound to that inorganic moon, is actually where the cells disappear to, absorbing the machine-like frequencies of the Saturn moon matrix based in dark energies? What are the implications of that taking place? Well, life would be half organic and half inorganic, and would make the organic appear inorganic, machine-like, almost robotic, would it not? A creational being then is now open to being programmed by the machine, like the inorganic element of the zero matter. Hi all and welcome back. We're going to go deeper again. I told you this was some show. And I guess at this point some heads are exploding a bit. The possibilities, the probabilities, and a Wells the Fargo style thinking. And that is understandable, and something I pondered heavily on when writing this, of where to go with this and how to conclude this piece. I was just browsing the chat, and one comment says it fits in with the females backstabbing and running like packs. I don't think that person realised what they just stated. Running like packs is connected to the wolf, is it not? The wolf fell with the moon, the same as the female, and that's why that happens. There's your proof. So, we've got to this point, and let's go deeper again. We've heard much about bots, synths and clones, which are all inorganic in part creations. And then we have the smoky beings, known as jinns, which are also inorganic, and the host possession capabilities those entities have due to abuse of the vessel via magic, excess alcohol, excessive or darker aspects of sexual practices, spiritual practices abuse like peyote or ayahuasca, and also drug abuse, either pharmaceutical, hard or soft drugs, which is described in some cases as being recreational drugs, but you miss the word play on that. They are not recreational. Replace re with rec, and they wreck creational beings, drugs. Oops. Are you getting the picture now? This is why they deleted the phonetic style word teachings. Some will say re and creational, and some will pronounce it recreational. Words are vibrations. They have frequencies, which is the frequency memory-based codes that are easier to recognize. If you use phonetics, some of the children will get the hidden meanings before it's programmed out of them, and the frequencies behind it. So now they tell you to repeat their phonetic that they want you to hear and repeat. Drugs wreck creational beings. Oh my. You still want to light up that spliff? Be my guest. You know, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to teach you the hidden dangers of it. Your own free will decides which path you take. But enlightenment is not achieved by drugs, far from it. It wrecks creational beings. Jinns were used by the dark in a bad spiral down also into the abyss. They have become the harvesting centre for extinct beings. all of which was caused by the fallen and dark forces. And the reincarnation loop trap also, their memory wipe technology that wiped the people into bots like a hard drive and returned them in new bodies to continue the harvesting. Eventually, if you keep doing that to organic beings after each successive memory wipe and returned to lower vibrational time-space and also lower vibrational families, that species erodes away. It is a devolution. Man fell. Remember the old cassette recorders and cassettes? If you keep copying on the same tape, the recording becomes less and less clear and it degenerates. A bit like the Bubba Group, really. This same thing happened to humans here over many thousands of years. The organic was mutating into the inorganic by mimicking the machine. And essentially many became bots. This is where the 15% comes in again. 15% can't be programmed. These are your higher based souls who came in to rescue this planet and its living creatures. This also explains why too few people will awaken. They are too damaged and too far into the inorganic bot frequency of the machine. Yes, you can give them lots of evidence, facts or proof. They won't listen. They can listen, but they won't hear. They have eyes, but they don't see. Again, it is evidence of a programmed entity that only has a small RAM space and very few bytes of data, all recorded for them to repeat back. And anything outside of their program package is just rejected. What happens if you bombard them with information? It then goes system overload and they shut down on you. You've all experienced it. All very computer-like, is it not? The jinns were created by Source as a teaching course for new or developing beings. They operated for the light in a dark capacity. The dark teaches us our best lessons. They always did. But those lessons went unheeded as you could gain shiny things, trinkets, titles and pieces of paper or gold by playing with them. The object was not to play with them, but observe them and learn the lessons. But most immersed themselves in the lesson and forgot there was a lesson, as they essentially became and morphed into the zero and subsequently inorganic creation that copies the machine. Our education, governments, media, and in particular the church, all tells you to copy and repeat the narrative. It's like a computer program putting in the codes for everyone to run their software on. Never question it, they tell you. And just like the so-called chosen ones operating under the banner of being Jewish, don't ever question anything we do or have done. follow the program we have given you and question nothing. That is a program of stagnation and anti-life. Life is always about questioning. Without it, you will never learn and will remain at child levels of learning. And this is why our species is a child-based universal species. We have not reached adulthood in sufficient numbers. That is a fact, whether people like that statement or not. So how is this all achieved? Dark force elements over several millions of years removed us from the time and space we are in, or we're in. One of the 7 primary matters that has the ability and capacity to create organic life, the G matter, was removed, and our DNA was removed by being in a different time space. And please don't go looking for references to GNA on the internet. Scientists will not know it either. You will not find it anywhere outside of this host or this show. But it's an integral part of our connection to Source, which we lost. Organic life cannot prevail just anywhere in space. The 7 key components of a region of space have to be prevalent for life to then form. And if the G matter is removed from that region of space, or the planetary system is moved, which may be the key pointer, it then enables the possibility of creating inorganic life. And subsequently the first stage to cutting organic beings within that region of space off directly from Source. You see, inorganic life and machines do not need Source as their guide and frequency connection. They operate outside of Source and become their own separate creation. But they need organic beings to input and feed off, and keep their false creation going. And this is why the astral realm was created, or fell. The astral realm now is essentially a giant farm of cannibals. We are, and in some cases were, that food source. These fake shamans won't tell you that. Let's all visit the cannibal farm where you will all be fed off by extinct and predator harvesting beings. That is where most humans go when doing ayahuasca and peyote. More so if you are of the white race. There is a reason it affects the white race more than the coloured races. It's genetic memory. And why white people more than the other colours react violently sick to that potion. Why? Because it's a low vibrational plant. That brings not enlightenment, but endarkenment. And this then leads to the next stage, the fall of the organic beings into the machine. They then replace Source with false gods and lords and run a program on the organic and inorganic beings to solidify the internal disconnect and seek outside of themselves. then the false creation gods has hold of you, and that program is called religion. It's the reinforcement of the spellcast of the fall. Religion is the spellcast and is putting in our faces the fall of man. This then brought in matrix programs, humans being placed in sleeping pods, oblivious they are or were in them, whilst they reset everything in accordance with inorganic life. This is where the flood comes in, or rock throwing incidents. Humans were put in sleeping pods while they reset it. You have all heard of the dream within the dream. That is describing those sleeping pods. Then the holographic overlay, which is not a real holograph, despite some clowns on the internet, but is the appearance of such. And you can view this yourselves by drawing it. An equal wave across the page, starting with the wave going up from the bottom left of the page, and then at the same height as the up wave of the first wave on the left hand of the page, you draw a wave down. And if that's drawn correctly, you will have a series of wave intersections. Turn your page 90 degrees, either way, doesn't matter, and you will see a series of loops or figure eights, which is the Mobius loop I spoke of earlier. The trap. And when you got to the bottom or the intersection of going from one eight to another is when you had the opportunity of escape that loop. They blocked it 6 times, 5 times, this is the 6th, and this time it ends. Essentially, they copied the same frequency. That's all they do. The first wave was the organic wave. The second one was inorganic and overlaid it. And if you overlay a photograph, you end up with a holograph. It's not real, it's illusion. But the perception of it in 3D terms is it's real, because your eyes can see it. But deeper thinking on it then reveals the illusion. Seeing is not always believing, as they say. It's like if you walk along a railway line and it's about 3-4 feet wide, and then if you look down the track, it goes to 0. Well, that's not real, is it? You know the track is equal, but your eyes deceive. And it's the same with the holograph. So with man fallen here, in came the new god or gods, like the Abraxans, a humanoid being that are far worse than the Draco will ever be. They abused, used and lied to the Draco. And for evidence of that, watch Jupiter ascending. It's all there, including the essence harvesting program done by the reptiles. That was us. in those vats. Life essence. Now the Draco attempted to create us in their image, but they did not create us at all. They wanted to recreate us after the deluge. Man in their image. Their creation, Adam and Eve, as it's known, failed. Moses, Noah, and most other biblical figures were their creations or species, not ours. They all carried the mark of the Nephilim, which is the scaly skin, not all over, but in patches, like the Melchizedeks, another of their creations or species. So why was it only in part? Because they were part human and part reptile is why. Now pondering on this led me to another stunning revelation that is yet to be confirmed, and here it is. What if the Draco didn't make us, but humans made them? Oops. So how would that take place? Well, long before humans were here on this planet, and also all the time humans have been here, the raptor beings were always prevalent. Even after the event of the dinosaurs being wiped out by that rock-throwing dinosaur event, which was done by the Abraxans and some elements of the Aldazani, who are also humanoid. That event then wiped out the food source of the original Draco that was here. The original Draco. Most of which were not the royal Draco, because they have wings. Look at some of the Sumerian hieroglyphs for evidence of them. These entities have been mistaken as angels. They're far from it, from my own personal experience, never mind anybody else's. But what if there was a Draco Point 2 who were created in our image, with a mixture of raptor, which existed here back then, and they also had the DNA and the genetics to stay here. Not all species have those genetics, and so not all species can come or be here, particularly on the surface. Below our feet there is 4 and 5D and different compositions of air to breathe. Not all species can breathe oxygen. A lot of them are nitrogen. High doses of that is a death sentence for some of them beings, which is why they built special underground bases with vents pumping in the air that they can breathe. So the raptor DNA and the human DNA genetics, either this human version or the Abraxans, given they were working with elements of Draco back then created the hybrid version of Draco that could operate in and on the Earth. Oops. But they always had to be covered, as they all carry, in varying degrees, the scaly skin, like Marduk. This also then explains the variance in not only human genetics, but also the reptile genetics, of which the domesticated cat contains the latter. how else can you explain why an Rh-negative human mother requires an injection to prevent the mother destroying her own baby? Why would a mother's body attack their own creation? It makes no sense. But the underlying question to that conundrum is, how did the doctors know that was a fact? People don't ask these questions. Given statistical analysis is more based in the last 25 to 30 years, because of the computer, and also, how did they know what injection to give the mother to prevent the mother from destroying her own baby? See, there's no evidence of the previous discovery of Rh-negative baby rejection or the trials of different drugs to combat it. Someone or something knew and provided the information to counteract it. Those discoveries and the subsequent counteractions to it. It takes several decades of analysis and statistical data collection to come to an informed decision on something is a problem. But with this issue, the problem is known and the antidote delivered almost instantaneously. Does that make any sense? They're your hybrids. Zeros and ones. The battle for this planet rages on between the light and the dark, the heirs and the Koshis, and the last real attempt to reclaim it, that was around 5,000 years ago, which ended with the real biblical exodus, not out of Egypt, but into Egypt, of the exiled Kalimar peoples and the sub-grey race, now known as Jews. But as Jesus said, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but they are a synagogue of Satan. This sub-grey race is who the books was referencing or writing on behalf of, is what Jesus was referring to. Now, having covered who are the heirs in Early From Russia with Love series, and again on Thursday, we need not in this show cover that again of who they are. But perhaps people need to know who or what were the races here before we proceed to what was undertaken here to fix it. Well, the races were put in colours. This is not, which is not to be taken in today's modern racial terms, of which all get far too easily offended by everything. But these were the races, and the colours were predominantly the skin tones, but not 100% so. The great race, white. The great dragon, yellow. The fiery snake, red. Both dragon and the serpent races were the former controllers of what is now known as the Trust. Both of them failed, and it's now in the hands of the Rus and the Great Race. Gloomy heathland, black. These are your Kalimar peoples. Pekelni world, grey. This is the sub-grey race we speak of. Sub in this case does not mean lesser, although one could argue that point. Sub means hybrid. You're connecting the dots now in relation to that group. Let's look closely at the word Pekelni, shall we? Pekelni derives from the Slavic word peklo, which means hell. It also in other languages means pitch, tar, and so the term pitch black is derived from it. The Ers described the skin colour of pitch black in reference to the Kalimar peoples. Pekel, NY, sounds interesting when split that way. Becomes more interesting is that Pekel is a Jewish Hebrew name. Pekel, NY, born in and born to again. Oh my. Pekel means hell, NY is New York, New York is hell. Coincidence? Like the reference to the Gotham earlier. Like I said, connect the dots. And so, many thousands of years ago, a new plan was formulated outside of here. And those people were then seeded here to hopefully awaken to their part of the plan and then carry it out. Those new but very old souls started coming in here around late 1950, 1960 onwards, give or take a couple of years. This was counteracted by the Dark Forces and their tech, and many of those early souls were placed into abusive and destructive families, designed to hamper their progress and not conducive to their awakening. The plans, in case people ask, were not in written or reading form. They were contained within your own DNA, which you have to switch on. Or get a certain show host to trigger it. This was the reintroduction of the higher soul developed organic beings, brought in for two reasons: prevent the dark forces from destroying this world completely before 2012, and then following the end of their looking glass technology in the same year, whereby they lost the advantage of seeing ahead of time, and then removing their ancient techs like the AI, the Matrix, the Saturn Moon based frequencies, the reincarnation loop tech, the Mobius loop traps, and the memory wipe tech, and various other things during this period and lifetime. We'll be back shortly. Hi all and welcome back. Where are we going next? The introduction of the organic souls in here also brought about the rise in technology of the clones to counteract the plan of the light forces. That became largely a side issue as more prevalent things were required. Each successive decade since 1960 brought in improved conditions for the organic souls, but also brought in a heightened increase in countermeasures to block those from awakening and remembering their role in the plan. The 1960s brought in the New Age program, Free Love, which is not free at all, and the devastating drug program. There was a reason it increased that decade. 1970s just enhanced it, and 1980s saw a marked increase in music frequencies being destroyed to again tip the balance in their favour. 1990s brought in the tech to further take away the souls from their mission, and distraction-based tech and items were introduced, which included fear programs called News, no longer at 6 and 10 p.m, but all day, every day, in an attempt to control the narrative. From 2000 onwards, souls started coming in with more developed soul growth, and also extra strands of DNA switched on, designed to expand out across the globe and interact on a subconscious level with all organic human souls. They were curtailed again with the think tank created dis-ease called ADHD. There is no such thing as ADHD. They are diagnosing higher-end children with it to stifle their abilities and the frequency they resonate at, with yet again drugs like Ritalin, which is a poison, and also a brain inhibitor, who is also a common factor of school shootings as well. Most who did that were on Ritalin. So clearly this has psychotic effects, and those with higher levels of psychosis are rendered obsolete in developing on a soul or DNA level. Because of the looking glass technology, they started the ADHD program and Ritalin in the early 1980s. By 1985, there were 500,000 children diagnosed with it. 14 years later, in 1999, it was 7 million. In America alone, there was 6.1 million children in 2016 diagnosed with it. Why is America targeted more than other countries? Because here is the final battlefield in this war of light and dark, is why. A 43% increase since 2003 in America, and 11% of all American children are now diagnosed with this fake disease, 400,000 of which are under the age of 5. Male children are 350% more likely to be diagnosed with it than females, which is suggestive of the earlier piece that they had control of the females already with the moon binding. To prepare more for this increase, and with the year 2000 looming, the Dark Force think tanks went into overdrive, with mental health hospitals and institutes going up and staffed faster than normal hospitals. Langley predictably applied most of the grants and the funding for this. And then the seducement kicked in. You're not going to like this next line. In 1991, eligibility rules for federal education grants were changed to provide schools with $400 in annual grant money for each child the school diagnosed with ADHD. Oops. I'm going to repeat that again so it sinks in. In 1991, eligibility rules for federal education grants were changed to provide schools with $400 in annual grant money for each child the school diagnosed with ADHD. That same year, the Department of Education, which means training of animals, which was created in part by the military, US military, as covered in From Russia with Love 7, I think, formally recognised ADHD as a handicap and directed all state education officers to establish procedures to screen and identify ADHD children and provide them with special education and psychological services. As a result, the number of ADHD cases soared again. For money. With more than half of those 7 million children also prescribed Ritalin, the stock market value of its manufacturer, the Swiss pharmaceutical company Novartis, has also soared. The so-called neutral Swiss again. Neutral my ass. Rothschild's psychotic playground is what Switzerland is. Now that company and others are working to introduce a host of new drugs into the classroom, including Prozac and Luvox, which has been approved by the FDA for pediatric use. The FDA, like the World Horror Organization, are both satanic rogue bodies. But the industry was looking for even further growth, as they then started targeting preschool toddlers by the pill brigade. Preschool children being targeted for pills. The use of psychotropic drugs like antidepressants and stimulants in 2 to 4 year olds doubled or even tripled between 1991 and 1995. All supported by the Fed, which has been very good for the pharmaceutical industry as well. This is why America has one of the highest mental health rates. Not because Americans are mentally unstable, but because they've been drugged. And here's why. Ritalin is known to cause cardiac arrhythmia, tachycardia, and hypertension, which is ironic as hypertension is one of the original symptoms of the so-called fake disease ADHD, is it not? Ritalin, like cocaine, causes the brain to shrink. Still want to snort? So, if ADHD is a fake disease, what are the causes of the symptoms and hyperactivity these children display? Science, doctors or psychologists will not tell you this, as A, they haven't got a clue, B, they are aware but like the monetary kickbacks, or C, they are aware and are part of the system and subsequent cover-up. There is no D, all of the above. The symptoms these children are experiencing is because the frequency here is so low in comparison from where they came. They have great difficulty adjusting to the frequency here, which is stifling. Mainly because of the background noise here. They came from a place with harmonic frequencies and relaxation-based background noise. And what these children experience is the equivalent of a teacher scratching her nails down a chalkboard all day, every day. It's the same effect. It's irritating and it goes right through you. And this is why they are noisy, to drown out that sound, and run wild and become erratic to keep busy to avoid the background noise. Those children go quiet when around higher vibrational people and energies. They go from boisterous and wild to complete calm. I've witnessed it myself when I was helping a few families with that fake disease. Once they reach puberty, it becomes easier for them to manage the symptoms. And then one just hopes they've not been too damaged by the medications. Ritalin is damaging these children, and the dark forces know it too well what to do. If you know someone with ADHD and they are being medicated, please stop them medicating that child. Medicating is poisoning the child, shrinking its brain and destroying the extra developed child's brain. So why did these more developed souls come here from the late 50s, 1960s onwards? Well, it was part of a mission that was to save the people in here and also destroy the system, the dark forces and their technology to boot. This could not be achieved from outside of here and could only be done from the inside. Previous external fixings made things worse, it seems. And in essence, and also in an amusing sense of irony, these developed souls entered here like a virus and attacked the host from within. It became clear this mission is not about saving the all. It turned into a rescue mission and then a salvage mission, as the full truth of what took place here became all too clear and of great disappointment. But despite that, they pushed on. The 15% mentioned earlier, these are your 15% organic souls. Organic souls will not be tricked by their zeros and ones game. We are the one on one and with the one. but we are surrounded by programmed bots called Smiths. Engaging them becomes an exercise in low vibration. They are machines. You cannot reason with machines. And recognise that fact is a key to understanding what is and has gone on here. They are called Smiths because it's the most common Western name. Then they tell you to keep in touch with another of the most common names, Jones. All keep up with the Joneses now. That'll be a no. The tech of theirs rendered obsolete has made a big difference here. More than can be realised even by most of our listeners. It laid the path for where we are today. Like I said, event 1 was, we are all still alive. An achievement in and of itself. But without mainstream media telling you that, it becomes a moot point for many. What other reasons did they come here for? To raise the frequency and be ready for the wave and the return of the source-based energies. Without all the previous work done, those energies would not have been as beneficial. It would have overwhelmed people and sent them spiralling into chaos. Some will argue that has taken place when you look around you, and yes, that is true. But our members were warned of its coming, and many of you took it on board. Or you would all be like those around you as well. The path had to be cleared for the return of the G-Cloud and G-Matter. Many of you have been experiencing this yourselves since we played that note on a show 3 years back now. That cloud is of ultimate benefit to those who did the work, and you are organic. Those who didn't will suffer. The frequency is too high for them to handle, but their struggle and suffering will be short. I did a riddle recently and I tested my own theory that the inorganic veil was collapsing. And could I witness it where the veil is at? And yes, I did. It's at 9,000 feet and fallen. But as above and so below. So it's rising at 9,000 feet also below our feet. As it pushes up and presses down, this will cause a compression point, a bulge of the planet if you will, and increases stress on the plates, mountains and volcanoes. This is the expansion the planet is experiencing, and potentially your GPSs may not be as accurate as you thought. The planet is shifting, as many airports have found out. Runways built and pointed to the magnetic north are now way off centre due to this shift. So we had organic, higher developed souls pave the way and prepare for the full return of organic life here and the planet's restoration to organic life. That will have consequences for the inorganics that are left here. Phasing and shifting. you're so fine, and the world will disappear. Final piece. I recently said a statement to one of our members, and which is kind of an odd statement until you ponder on it. I said the message was in the words, not the destination. And the follow-up to that was, the deeper you go, the further you travel. So what does that all mean? Well, it can mean several things, but let's ponder on a few. Words have frequencies, and you have to combine them to get the message across. You will not arrive at your destination without combining the frequencies. Those that make statements without compiling the required frequencies are at the destination, but they have no idea how they got there or why, and they are lost at sea permanently. The deeper you go, the further you travel is about you. You go deeper into you, and you will travel further than you can imagine. But you have to combine the frequencies and grasp them, then retain them like a muscle memory to arrive at your destination. This is your journey. It's not mine. It's not anyone else's, but your journey only. The journey was long. It was arduous, brutal, and traumatic as we travailed through the crossroads, pondered the forked path, went down the left path and fell to walk the right path, became aware of the hidden side street cul-de-sacs that looped back to the left path. And it is a testimony to how far many of us have come in what is a blink of an eye in terms of time. The key to it all is not you fighting the system in a direct way. Society teaches you to do that, or educates you to do that. You fight the self to change the system. Mastery of the self weakens the system. The system relies on you to feed it. Why keep doing it? You fight the self to change the system. Mastery of the self weakens the system. The alt media talks of 0 point energy, and we need machines to create and harvest it. Typical limitation program. But there is no zero until you create it, or create from it. Zero is just a point of reference of inorganic value until you create something with it. Then it has an organic numerical value. The dark cannot do that, only the light. Like an artist with a blank piece of paper. People will just say, it's a blank piece of paper. Like they say, there is nothing in the 0 point or the singularity. Why is there nothing there? Because it was waiting for your input. You are the artist. You are the creator. You are that energy. And the 0 energy is a dormant space and a canvas from which you have to produce from. Remember the term, out of the nothing came the all. The all is you, and the nothing is your creative playground. Get and be creative for source sakes. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. I hope you enjoyed the show. Bye for now.